Welcome to the Mark Travis and Derek Christopher podcast. I am, of course, Derek Christopher. We're here with, of course, Mark Travis. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing great, Derek, and I'm doing great because today is my 82nd birthday, and I only get to celebrate this day once a year, or the 82nd year only once every 82 years, or something like that. Anyway, it's a great day.
Or how does it feel different between 22, 42, and 82?
Wait a minute, what kind of a question is that? How does it feel different between being 22 and then you went to 42 and then you went to
Nice.
82?
I skipped the 60s. I went straight to the 80s.
Well, you skipped the 60s and the 70s. That's
Yes.
okay. How does it feel, those three? Well, 22 was naive and eager and partly misguided and crashing around and banging around, thinking I knew what I was doing.
Yeah.
42, think I figured out I do know what I'm doing and I'm not crashing and banging around anymore. And by 82, I realized that at 42, I still didn't know what I was doing. So, and by 82, I'm that older guy that you want to talk to try to figure out what you were doing when you were 42 or 22.
As a creative person, have you seen, like, does the desire ever decline? Or because to me, you seem just as hungry as you've always been. And I've known you for a long time now. And
Hmm.
you seem even probably hungrier now than ever before. And you seem to really sort of embrace the creative process, whatever it may be.
That's true. That hasn't changed. I mean,
Yeah.
when people ask me about, which you haven't, which is fine, ask me about retirement, I have a lot of thoughts about that, and that I'm not going to retire. And Elsa and I talk about, no, I'm not retiring. Why do that? That seems like a silly idea. But getting back to what you were just talking about, I feel very, very lucky and very
Yeah.
blessed that, and I can even tell you about what I was thinking about just a couple of hours ago as I was waking up,
Yeah.
that my mind keeps churning forward with new ideas and new thoughts or new questions, new challenges. Um, I think the biggest difference between 82 and maybe 42 and 22 is that there was back at 22 and 42, there was a lot more anxiety. Now there's just joy. Now there's this, oh,
Wow.
there's a wonderful idea. And you
Yeah.
know about a lot of these because I've told you about them.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful idea. Oh, that'll be exciting. Oh, wait till I call whoever. I'm going to call Diego and talk to him about that. I know he can, because I have this wonderful, which you know a lot of them, the group, this team around me of friends and artists and support. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And so no anxiety, just a sense of adventure. So it feels more like two, not 22,
Yeah.
maybe two. Like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, I got an idea. Um, I think, many times Elsa and I talk about being 4 years old again, four or
Yeah.
five. That's a wonderful time where everything seems possible. And so that's
Yeah.
yes.
Because I,
Always charging forward with new ideas. That's to me is most exciting thing. They're just coming up with a new idea, and then even if a day later it's gone, or you
yeah.
realize it's not going to work, yeah, but you had a great day thinking about it, and yeah,
But
it's
I get that sense
fantastic.
that you still think that. I know I still think that anything is possible. Like if you come up with an idea and you get excited over it, you go,
Mhm.
"There's no reason I can't do this."
That's true. And now getting a little philosophical for a moment, that anything is possible. Um, First of all, it's true. Anything is possible. Um, and what's there was many, many years ago when I was going to the Church of Religious Science or something like that. Anyway, where their creed was what can be conceived can be achieved. In other words, if you can think of it, it's possible. So,
Well, but there are limitations because if I called you tomorrow and I said, Mark, you know what? I've decided I'm going to be the lead dancer in the Russian ballet. You'd be
great.
like, get the fuck out of here. What are you talking about?
No, I'll just say, okay, how many years is that going to take, Derek? I just
Yeah.
possible. Um, Now, there's also the other sort of philosophy, which is Einstein. He said there's two ways of looking at the world. One is that nothing is a miracle.
Yeah.
The other way is everything is a miracle.
Yeah.
And I like the everything is a miracle, which gets back into everything is possible.
Yeah.
And why not think? And if even someone says that's it's not possible, you can't do that, you can't achieve it. Yeah, but I can believe that I can and live with that. That's
Oh, see, now that's interesting. That's a really
yeah.
interesting way of looking
So
at it.
so so don't take that away. So you want to be a head dancer in the Russian ballet?
Yeah.
Great. Hold on to that. Go for it. The journey, practice of a journey is going to be much more interesting than probably when you eventually get there.
Yeah.
But the it's like a little child coming up and saying something really wacky and sort of inventive and creative and ridiculous to you. Oh, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. The best thing to do is great. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Rather than, no, honey, I'm sorry, that's not possible. Because then you kill dreams and then you kill imagination. And I think you and I are in the world of not only dreams, imagination, storytelling, all of that, but in a world where anything we can think up, let's pursue it, and anything we can imagine. And the wonderful thing about being in the world of storytelling and filmmaking and all that,
Yeah.
you could. I'm going back to your Russian Derek Christopher Russian dancer.
Yes.
Could we make that film? Absolutely. Could we design? And so why not?
Be a fantastic film.
Yes, it would be.
Just the whole journey for me doing it. That I agree
Yeah.
with. The creative
Yeah.
process of it and documenting it would be incredible.
Hmm.
But it wouldn't have the payoff. It wouldn't have the payoff unless the payoff was I rented a theater and I put up my own sign that said Russian ballet, and I created my own story world.
Yes, you could do that.
So
When I was years ago, and I may have told you this, I was in Death Valley,
yeah,
which is called Death Valley for a really good reason. But
yeah,
and there's a little town there. I forget what the town is called. It doesn't matter. But walking through the town, Diane, my ex-wife, and I, back when we were married, walking through this town, old buildings, an old motel there with it. Nobody was staying at. It was like a ghost town.
yeah,
But it was there. It was small. This was like one little street and a bunch of buildings. And one building was like a town hall or something like that. And inside this town hall building, there was a big room, a very large room, like a ballroom type room, not
yeah.
huge, but pretty big. And that's where we met the Death Valley dancer. Now, this is a
Oh,
woman who lives in Death Valley with her husband. Her husband spends most of his days walking through the desert looking for old bones and relics, and that's his joy.
yeah.
She's a dancer. She dances every day in this ballroom. This
Yeah.
ballroom is theirs. And you look at the walls of the ballroom. She's been there for years. And the walls of the ballroom are painted with her audience.
Well, you can't get much farther from a big city than Death Valley Junction, California. It's a ghost town perched on the eastern lip of the hottest desert on Earth.
So Marta has made a world here where she is recognizing the roots of her arts. When Marta does the creating, somebody has to pull the curtain.
The curtain is pulled up whenever Marta feels like dancing, whether or not there's an audience to appreciate her dream.
Welcome to Death Valley Junction and to the Amargosa Opera House. May I present now Marta Beckett.
Characters
Wow.
all the way up high to the where
I
they're in
love
the
it.
balcony. And she paints the walls and then she dances and she paints. And while Diane and I were there, we went to one of her performances. And we were the only two at
Yeah.
her. And there were other chairs for other people, but she did a full performance. But there's a dream. I want to
That's
dance. I want to
great.
dance for an audience. I'm in Death Valley. Oh, you can't do that here. Oh, yes, I can. And she does.
doesn't that always go back to the matter that, especially if, like for writers or filmmakers, you have to love writing, you have to love storytelling, you have to
Hmm.
love filmmaking, that you can't obsess or worry necessarily about what the final result's going to be.
Right. You can imagine. I think when we have those dreams, we imagine the final, what it could look like. We can imagine that, but not obsess on it. Not
Yeah.
obsess on it. And another thing, just part of the philosophy that Elsha and I have now for a lot of reasons is, and we're not obsessed by it turning out the way we want it to,
Yes. Yeah.
but committed to the journey,
Yeah.
committed and staying in the journey as long as it brings joy and happiness and creativity, and why not? And then just keep going. And if it doesn't, we've had a lot of things not turn out the way we thought we want, and we laugh about it. Well, that didn't work, did it? No. Or something else comes along or whatever. So I think, and again, talking about storytelling, being committed to not the results,
Yeah.
but totally committed to the moment you're in, the
Yes.
moment, whatever you're doing, like what you and I are doing right now, just totally committed to that.
But how do you deal when that world starts closing in? You know, I don't know if you saw this article in IndieWire. The headline was, "It's the death of the screenplay industrial complex and not a moment too soon," because Coverfly is going out of business and all of its
Right.
sub platforms are going out of business. And I just saw that there was a book fair somewhere, I think in the middle of America, that didn't do well. And you're just seeing the opportunities for writers. I mean, the magazines are all gone. The conferences are disappearing. You don't have the weekend warriors like you and Bob and John and all that stuff going out there doing what you guys used to do. So how do you keep motivated when you see sort of the world you want to be in keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller? That IndieWire article was pretty harsh because it basically said all the opportunities for new screenwriters are disappearing. They're drying up. So what do you do? How do you keep motivated to keep moving forward for that dream?
Um, I know my answer.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this, you and I've talked about this a lot, even with like the conventions you used to put together and those big expos and things that we
Yeah.
all used to be part of, and those are gone for a lot of reasons. I think f- for me, I hear that, I read that, you sent me that article, I go, huh,
Yeah.
okay, thank you for that information, but I'm still going to keep doing what I'm doing. No, and then it says, okay, what is it I'm doing? Well, yeah, but you can't do this, you can't do that. All those opportunities out there are going away. Oh, fine. I'll make new ones. I'll make new
Exactly.
ones.
Yeah.
And now that the hybrid thing that we've been talking about, I have a lot more news on that, but
Yeah.
the hybrid thing that we're talking about, a new, that's a creation.
Yeah.
Um, Not because I see that industry or those opportunities going away or the industry dying. It's not because of that I've created this. I created this to me. It's an exciting new way to be doing what I've always been doing, reaching out, teaching, training, inspiring other people, getting inspired by other people. And so if a few doors close, fine. I'm going to open some new ones. Ones that maybe we didn't even know were there.
Yeah.
That's exciting. And I think for writers, especially, I mean, I am a writer, but some people who are screenwriters, is the business dying? I would say no. Is your business as an opportunity, as a screenwriter dying? Only if you let it.
Right.
Only if you let it. In other words, can you still write great screenplays? Yes. Could you still make movies? Yes. Do you have an iPhone? Yes. You can make a movie. In other
Yeah.
words, find other avenues,
Yeah.
or paths for
Yeah.
your creativity. Even when, I mean, let's just go out there and say Netflix shuts down totally. Fine. How many projects did you do on Netflix? None. Well,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
And so, um, and I just thought of another thing is all the negativity about what's happening. I mean, the reality, what you're talking about what's happening. like Coverfly and people like places like that, opportunities for writers shutting down. That's
Yeah,
that's a reality. Those individual things are a reality, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean it has to impact you. It's just what's happening out there.
yeah.
And we could, which we're not going to, you could get into the whole political situation, not just in our country, but around the world. Go, oh my God, oh my God. Yeah, but get back to what you're doing. Your
Well,
your job is to do what you're here to do.
and ultimately, I mean, you know what? Netflix is still creating new shows. Hulu's
Hmm.
creating new shows. Amazon, they're filming and creating new shows. So they are coming from somewhere. So I think that the
Yep.
key is to really find out where are they creating it? Where are those opportunities? You know, my buddy Zach that used to work at Final Draft, I mean, I
Hmm.
love Zach. Zach is he's just like a ball of positive energy. And he has put together an event called Storytelling 360 that's taking place in LA. And he's got some big
Right.
names. He's got Eric Roth, and he's got the guy that created Cobra Kai, and he's got some big agents and whatnot. And I love Zach because he's really trying to bring back the whole concept of these conferences and events
Hmm.
that celebrate storytelling and celebrate screenwriting and TV
Hmm.
writing. I don't know how he's going to do. I hope it's a huge success. I hope it's a massive success. And if anybody can do it, I have absolutely no doubt Zach is the guy that is going to carry that flame. But
Hmm.
I really wonder if that is the way to do it. I mean, that was my world for 25 years. And
Hmm.
so I've seen the best, I've seen the worst of it. And there was a reason I got out of it because I just didn't see the opportunity anymore. So I'm hoping Zach sees something through his lens that I didn't see.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch this a little bit
Yeah,
from me to you, and
yeah,
because after 25 years, you get out of what you were doing and your love, your passion, your joy for 25 years,
yeah,
and I know I've watched you in those past few years, still holding on by your fingernails to see if you could make it work, right?
yeah.
And so now you're saying, okay, I'm out. It's not there anymore. It's not going to work anymore. So what are you doing?
What am I doing? I mean,
And
personally, am I
what
doing?
are you doing instead of doing that?
Oh, you know what? I find new opportunities. I have my new startup that I'm working on. I've
Hmm.
got a big concert in August that I'm promoting, that I'm doing. So, you know, it's the same thing that, you know, when I was doing conferences and expos a couple years ago, I pivoted for a couple years and I did expos with the band Kiss. And we did expos in LA, we did in New York, we did
Hmm.
Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta had 1,000 people. So I knew my skills would be good for that. And, you know, I was always a Kiss fan. So I was able to know exactly what kind of guests to bring in. It's the same skills that I did
Yeah.
in screenwriting and TV writing and filmmaking. I just moved it over to Kiss.
Hmm.
Um, and if I saw an opportunity to do a live event, I absolutely would do it because I do love that world. And I do think
Hmm.
it's got a lot of value and it gives I think it's not just a matter of teaching people the craft. It's for people to get together and network and talk to one another.
Hmm.
And it sort of becomes a supportive community, which is what I see has really eroded. And now, especially when you see Coverfly and all these other organizations, and I think you're going to see a lot more this year. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but I see a lot of organizations that I think are going to go down the toilet this year.
I
Go ahead.
think I'm getting back to Zach. As you were talking about Zach and Final
Yeah.
Draft and putting together that panel, which is coming up soon, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming up June 8th.
Okay. One little question about that. What's the topic?
Topic is I'm looking at it now. It's called Storytelling 360, the State of Story. And what he says, it's a full day series of discussions featuring leading storytellers, providing insights into the state of story. Discussion topics will examine the craft of storytelling, the ever evolving media landscape, and the technology utilized in creativity. Now, what Zach is doing, which is something that I always kind of stayed away from, which he's doing a day of panels. So he's got these guys on panels where I was always big on having people like you and McKee or Sid do individual classes about the craft because I wanted you guys to have the opportunity to parlay your knowledge on these topics to people,
Hmm.
which I think is much harder to put out there as a panel.
Yeah, and we get into what your thoughts and opinions and experiences and mine with panels and
Yeah.
how well panels work or don't work. But I want to go back again. In his description, there was only one thing that seemed to relate to what you and I are talking about now when he talked
Yeah.
about the landscape. The landscape. If this was a whole day, I guess it's one day, a whole day, and the focus was how to keep storytelling alive, how to reorganize yourself, how to find new opportunities in the face of what is happening right in front of us with those opportunities. If it was, and not about here's how you tell a story. We all know how to tell stories, but let's talk about ways of surviving. Let's talk about ways of reviving our business, just like you were talking about. You shifted from screenwriting expos to a whole convention with Kiss.
Yeah.
And because they, well, and just what you said, which was beautiful. And I knew that my skills there would work just as well as they, and I really like his and all of that. So you felt like you were in your comfort zone. It was just a slightly different product you were putting out there. And that's reinventing,
Yeah.
reimagining, um, the landscape. When Zach talks about the landscape, you look at the landscape and say, okay, well, it's a desert out there. It's not the beautiful jungle with the beautiful flowers anymore. It's a desert. Now it's a desert. Okay,
Yeah.
what do I do? What can I do? So I think if it was a whole day with individual talkers, maybe some panels, talking about that, on how that would be interesting because that's the challenge, as you're saying, which I think is accurate, that all of us are facing right now.
Well, not only that, I think that if I were Zach, and Zach has no idea that we're talking about this on this episode.
Oh, I think you
So
should. You're going to send this to him.
I'll be curious. I'll be curious to see what he says. Because if it were me, if you've got Eric Roth, okay, so Eric Roth wrote Forrest Gump. That was
Mm-hmm.
30 years ago, 35 years ago, whatever it was. What is Eric Roth going to tell you for today's world over the next couple of years that's going to help you with your craft, with your career? He's got the guy that created and executive produced Cobra Kai. Why not do some one-on-one time with him that, maybe have him sit down in a circle of people and have him help people develop their pitches, develop their ideas. What's the outline you have for your 10 episode, story arc? I think
Mm-hmm.
that you need to get down to the basics, the fundamentals of
Mm-hmm.
storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
rather than just talk about the general outlook of what storytelling, because of course they're going to come to and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, these experts are going to come to a conference where they're going to have, I don't know, 100, 200 people, whatever it is there. They're not going to say, you know what, give up. The industry is dead. You're never,
Yeah.
they're going to give you the raw bullshit that, they think that you want to hear. But I don't know that that's helpful for you.
No, maybe not.
Which is harsh. I mean, it's
Yeah.
harsh, but I'm really trying to figure out what it is that could be done today that would be helpful to help people, move their craft along. I mean, you're still doing active stuff. You're doing active teaching. Robert McKee's doing active teaching. Chris Vogler's out there doing stuff. But I think reaching the audiences for the people who
Mm-hmm.
understand that and appreciate the value of it, that's where it's gotten very, very tough.
Yeah, and there's also the audience of the wannabes, the newbies, which you've been very instrumental in inspiring,
Yeah.
who and and not being so negative that they get depressed and quit or whatever, but that they see potential and they see possibility. And you begin going back now to your Eric Roth thing and Forrest Gump, and
Yeah.
because there's a few things I know of, and I can't name them now that I know he's done since Forrest Gump.
Yeah.
But the question you're sort of bringing up is, okay, what is he doing now that is going to help me, or
Right.
could help me? And if he was, no, I haven't seen White Lotus.
White Lotus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Now but what little I read about it, it's new, it's inventive. And you go, oh, this guy would probably be interesting to listen to see what he's doing and why it's different and how it's different and how he came up with those ideas. That might be exciting.
I remember one of the story expos I did just before the pandemic in 2019 at the Pasadena Convention Center. I had the two guys that wrote it just come out then. It was a new Mr. Rogers movie. It's a Beautiful Day in the
Hmm.
Neighborhood. And these guys, they were young. They had just done something else that was big. And then they did this new Tom Hanks movie. So they were really hot and they came in and I interviewed them. And I remember in that particular session, we had maybe 40, 45 people. But then there was another session going on at the same time about how to pitch your script and make $1 million. That had like 160 people in it. And I thought,
Hmm.
here are two guys that are giving you step-by-step advice. I mean, the absolute best advice you could get in the world to do exactly the people who were attending wanted to have the careers that these guys had. And they were so approachable and they had so much great information. And yet it had a quarter of the audience of the other sessions. And it just, that made me crazy because that's when I really saw a shift that people were getting away from wanting to learn the craft to just this bullshit. I think I have a great idea. I'm going to make $1 million and that's it.
This reminds me, I may have said this before. I don't know where I heard this, but I like it, that the world is divided into two groups of people. So you have this
Yeah.
big room, and it's filled with a lot of people. It's just it's like a big lobby, waiting room, something like this, filled with people. And the way to leave this room, there are only two doors to leave this room. Okay.
Yeah.
One is marked heaven. The other one's marked a seminar on heaven.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm going to go talk to the two guys who created, It's a Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and how they took that. Or I'm going to learn how to restructure and make I'm going to the $1 million thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not and going to listen to those two guys who did the Tom Hanks movie. You're going to two guys who've been through the trenches recently, came out, survived it, and boy, they're going to have stories that are going to be so good.
And they're thriving. And
Yeah.
they're thriving in this new world,
Hmm.
you know? But it's the same way they always talk about song lyrics that there's a highway to hell, but there's only a stairway to heaven. So, you take your pick where you want to go.
That's good. I like
Yeah.
that. Or to, and I don't remember his name, to have a sit down meeting with the guy who created Baby Reindeer.
Yeah.
From, an autobiographical story. He's a stand-up comic and it's a true story, and he turned it into he went on this long journey, ends up being a huge Netflix series.
Yeah.
There's a journey I want to hear about. And
Yeah.
it's I think this is what you're talking about. That journey, we're talking about Baby Reindeer, not itself, but learning
Yeah.
about that long journey, or the two guys who created, which I'd really love to hear, Game of Thrones, who had never produced anything. They knew nothing.
Yeah.
They read the book, they said this would be good, and they ended up doing it. So the people who have gone on those journeys, I'd rather hear that journey
Yeah.
than advice.
Yeah.
Here's what I think
Absolutely.
you should. No, here's what I did. Oh, isn't that? I'd rather hear those little war stories and success stories and failures
Yeah.
rather than here's what I think you do. All you have to do is you do this and that kind of advice that's some of us get trapped into talking about in some way.
Yeah.
And I try to avoid it. And that's why I like stories better than, you
Yeah.
know, pontificating and lecturing.
Well, I used to tell this to people all the time at the conferences and expos because they would ask me, they go, what do you think is the best advice to become successful? And I would say, you know what, your first script, I would write the most commercial sellout script you can imagine. I said, because if you can have a big hit right out of the gate, then you can make your 5 shitty art films and do whatever you want. But if you're holding on to this idea that it's got to be done this way and it's the only way it can be done, you're going to be in for a rude awakening because it rarely, rarely happens that way.
Mhm. In fact, that's the story. I don't know the writer. That's the story of the writer, Little Miss Sunshine. He had
Oh, yeah, yeah,
written many, many, many things and nothing was selling. He said, I'm just going to sit down writing this, something that's so commercial, that's going to be
yeah.
such a tearjerker. That's got, and he did, and that's what came out.
And if you go look on YouTube, Sid Field did a great interview with him
Mm.
because Sid was a huge fan of Little Miss Sunshine.
This is, to me, what brought me together with the side, at first I was, oh no, Olive, don't do it. Don't go through the contest.
Right.
And then suddenly Richard gets up and I thought, hey, yeah, I mean, suddenly there's support there.
Yeah.
And again, to me, it's when the grandfather dies, when grandpa dies, that Richard really begins to take over as the father of the family and make those decisions.
Well, he's also seeing hopefully that there's other things in life that are more important than winning. Like having someone close to you pass away, you realize, we're only here on this earth for, just a few years. Trying to impress other people is a great way to waste your time, because it's really, you're never going to impress everybody. You're not going to make yourself happy.
And he sat down with a screenwriter and they did an interview, and it's out there on YouTube if you just search for it.
Yeah.
Now, with what you're doing now, so I don't know if you want to talk about it, this directing class you're talking about. I mean, how much do you want to get into it? Because I find it fascinating, because I find it's something new, and you are trying to break convention with it, which I love. And, I hope that people will see the value of it and appreciate how unique it is.
No, you're talking about the hybrid.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I call it the hybrid only because I don't have a good title for it yet.
Yeah.
How's that? But, this, I'll tell you where it started. It started when I was offering the course that I'm doing now, the other 50%, which you know about. And one of the students who had signed up for it said, "Oh, I looked over the whole syllabus and everything, and there's nothing in it about staging. What about staging?" And my first thought is, that's not the subject matter of this course. Subject matter is something totally different. But it triggered in me that a challenge that I've been facing for a long time. I've done 2 courses on staging that are online that you can stream now, okay?
Yeah.
And I'm really not that satisfied with either one, because the best way to teach staging is a bunch of people in a room, in a rehearsal room, or in a theater, whatever, actors, writers, directors, whoever we are, and we're exploring how staging works, where you can see it in person and see the power, feel the power of, for instance, there's a scene running, and I say, okay, you've seen the scene running, I'm going to make one change in it. And I tell, let's say it's just 2 characters, and I tell the actress, it's an actress and an actor, and I tell the actress, don't sit down on that line, sit down on the line after it. Okay, they run the scene again, and people go, oh, whoa, that changed the whole scene. I say, yes. Now, first of all, there's a reaction because you saw it live in the room. You feel it happening. That's the power of staging, or as Elsha, my beautiful Elsha, came up with the title, the art and alchemy of staging. And that's really what it is. It's this art and alchemy. So this person said, what about staging? And I said, that's not what the class is about. But I started thinking, she got me thinking about staging. What am I going to do? For years, a lot of people have been asking me to do what I used to do, and I said, I can't.
Yeah.
I can't. I'd have to go. I mean, I could, but I live in Hawaii now, and because that would be site-specific, I could do a whole course here on staging. How many people are going to either come to Hawaii or it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So then that's when I came up with the idea. Wait, but what happens if I do an online, like you and I are now, course on staging to a lot of people, as many people as can fit into the room, on the screen, whatever.
Live.
No, yeah. First of all, that's live, but it's not visually. We're not all in the same room.
Right.
We're all on the same Zoom, not room. But then, in order to demonstrate the power of staging, I have one location, one person, or actually a group of people in one place. There's a director there, there are actors there, there's a location there, and they are going to be working they are all in one room.
Yeah.
And that's who we're going to be watching. So now I'm mixing electronic online teaching with in the room teaching.
Yeah.
And as you know, we've been experimenting with it. So far, it's going very well. It's going to be a while before we get it refined. That's not a problem. But what excited me about that is I'm mixing 2 things together. When COVID came, I had to learn how to use Zoom and do this. And I've been doing that for years now.
Yeah.
but that means I abandoned a lot of the in the room stuff, the site specific. Now I combine, so I can be doing something and it's in the room, and you can be see the directors, you see the actors, you will see the changes immediately. You'll watch a scene.
It's because it's multi-camera.
It's multi-camera. It's yeah, and it's terrific because we've done it and we've had what, a dozen people online experimenting with this.
Yeah,
And once we're watching the scene, we would through spotlighting, boom, just three cameras, and you'll watch it. All three cameras are on the scene. That's it. And so
yeah,
now so I can focus the viewing audience right down to that scene. You
yeah.
watch the scene. Once the scene is over, we can open it up. I can talk to the director. I can talk to the actors. People who are online from wherever, Austria, can ask a question. So now it's a big international community talking to each other. I can make a suggestion to the actors to change the staging. They change it to, okay, and they say, okay, let's do the scene again. We go back to the three cameras again, and now I've plunged you inside that room again, and you will see the change. You'll see the effect, and it's live.
It's the closest I've heard from what I've seen or anybody talked about to bringing the live in-person experience to your own home.
Well, if it's all live in person, one is it's not international.
Yeah,
It's all in LA or wherever
yeah,
you are.
yeah,
What I like about this, and already the team working on this is international. They're from
yeah,
around the world working on this, putting this hybrid together.
yeah,
And because part of my agenda, I would say now on my 82nd birthday, I say this is when Elsa and I got together, we started talking a lot about dreams, and this is like 10 years ago,
yeah,
dreams and aspirations, and I learned a lot more about what she wanted to do because she's a brilliant artist and poet and writer and storyteller, and I told her what I wanted to do. And one of the things I've always wanted to do, Derek, which I've come a little close, but never really happened. I always had this dream of having this wonderful big building. In it is a theater, in it is a cafe, in it is
yeah,
a meeting room, and it's a community center for the community of artists that you bring
yeah,
them all together. Place where people hang out, and you can go there. You do screenings, and you do there, performances, and
yeah,
all that rehearsal rooms. And my biggest dream was the top floor was Elsa's and our apartment. So we lived up there.
yeah,
And all we had to do was sort of drift down, and Elsa could have an art gallery. What we had designed was fantastic.
yeah,
But there's that desire to reach out to a lot of artists and create
yeah,
a community. So
yeah,
I'm doing it electronically. I'm building the building electronically. So when someone from Austria, or I have one director in Bangladesh who wants to be one of the primary directors. People from around the world, they get to meet each other.
yeah,
They
yeah,
get to talk to each other. And so the way I'm designing it is more than just sit down and for 90 minutes and watch this event. You're going to be connecting with people. You're going to be making friends. Who knows what, and it's a lot of what, this is very similar to what you did.
yeah. And because you're developing that sense of community.
Yes. Yep. And the people, and the reason I said what you did, because it's through Story Expo and things that you put together like that I met a lot of people from
Yeah.
around the world. I have met other teachers. I met, and just hanging out in the hallway sometime, and you realize you're talking to, oh my, it's wonderful.
I just got a text from a guy that came to the very last Story Expo last year, and he wrote like the nicest, sweetest text. And he goes, "Look, you're close to me. Let's get together for coffee. Let's talk and whatnot." And I love that because that's one of the things that would be difficult to do if it was just a straightforward Zoom class with a single speaker and you've got 100 people
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
But even with what you're doing, I mean, if you think about the fact that you could develop this network of people from around the world. So when you go to Bangladesh or you go to London, you can go, oh, hey, I met such and such, such and such and such on, Travis's class, and we're going to get together in person,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
very cool.
Yeah. It's like, along with what I'm putting together, and if you've been a part of it, you may find yourself talking. There's this woman that I met the other day who would, where did I meet her?
Yeah.
Oh, she's in London. She's in
Yeah.
London. I was online, but that feeling that I've met this person, I know this person,
Yeah.
and feeling connected
Yeah.
that way. And along with this design, as big as it is, and it keeps growing bigger, which is okay. And concept is it keeps growing. The first the first iteration of this, which
Yeah.
will start, I think, near the end of this year sometime. So I keep
Yeah.
thinking September for some reason. We're going to start then. The first iteration of this, which will run for 1 year. It'll be one meeting per month for a year.
Yeah.
Now, as big as that feels, okay, it's 12 months, 12 meetings, people from around the world, but the focus of it, one thing, staging for an entire year. Now we're focusing on, and my feeling is I want, as a participant, I want to see if it continues to be about staging, I want to see it because I want to learn that.
Sure.
And then,
And
and
you
then,
you and you had some well-known directors that were sort of sitting in on the trial, the practice of it, and
yeah,
even they were saying, "I'm learning stuff here, Mark. I'm
yes,
like, I've done so many movies, and I'm still learning because of
yeah,
what I'm seeing,"
yeah. So
which I thought was incredible.
yeah, so the learning, and sometimes and maybe a lot of other people who do what I do, teaching, writing, directing, whatever, have this frustration. I'm talking
Yeah.
to a group of people. Oh, there's so much I could share with you about this. So much I can't because we are trying to cover this topic.
Yeah.
Here, I can get really, really specific, and I can get so that what you see in that rehearsal and what you hear from me and what you hear from that director who's directing those actors, what you hear from the actors, what you hear from the other people online will stick. It'll
Yeah.
stay. You go, I got it. And it might be somebody else. You might be in New Zealand watching it, and it's somebody in Texas, some director in Texas who said something that you'll never forget. Somehow that rung a bell for you. Not something
Yeah.
I said, but because of the environment and of the focus, I'm aiming for a higher learning curve. And then after the first year staging, we switch.
Yeah.
Then we go to the interrogation process for a year. In other words, it's very, very focused.
Yeah.
Each, so you know where it's focused, even though it's a lot of people.
And the important thing is it's an ongoing process. You're going to take a
Yeah.
lot from the first class, and then you've got 11 others after that will follow. So you're always learning. So you never have to like learn, stop, and do something. You can continue doing your projects and you can keep learning at the same time.
Yes, and if you're enrolled in this group, however that works out, which has not been really determined yet,
Yeah.
but each monthly episode is recorded. It'll be available. You can go back into the archives and say, "Oh, I want to see that one where the director who was in New York. I've heard
I think
about that one." And in other words, they have access to that information.
this is a great opportunity. I think that people who are interested in this kind of thing, they should get in touch with you now while you're in the process of finalizing the development of this, because maybe they're going to suggest things that they would like to see, or somehow you'll implement their ideas or their thoughts into what you're doing.
Yes, great. I would love to hear from anybody. And one thing that's happened already is one director in Georgia says, I want to do this in Atlanta. I want to be one of those directors you're focusing on." I go, great, let's talk.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Not
yeah,
not not just I want to be in the course. Well, if you're a director that we're focusing on, you're obviously in the course. You're not just coming
yeah.
in for that. So seeing actors too. There was another place where oh yeah, someone talked about an acting class, an acting group. We got a lot of actors here. People contacted me offering participation in some way, not just I
Yeah.
want to take this class. And that is important to me because they're really saying, I want to be part of this community.
That's huge. Yeah,
Yep.
that's huge. Now let me ask you a craft question. Let me just divert here for a
Crass,
second. Craft.
Oh,
Craft.
oh, I thought it was
Have
going to be crass. Okay.
have you seen Hamilton?
Yes.
Have you seen it in person?
Yes.
Is it, I'm certainly not the expert on staging you are, but I was just floored by the staging of that show and how
Hmm.
effective the staging made that storytelling. I mean, I saw
Hmm.
the TV thing when Disney did it and whatnot, but seeing it in person was a whole different experience.
Right.
And
Yep.
you really got an appreciation for how much the staging of that show helped the story.
Yes, and not only the staging of the performers, the actors, and the choreography of it all, but the brilliant set design that supported
Yes.
that and
Yes.
I mean, the floor that could move.
Revolving. It
And
seemed like such a simple thing, but it was so effective.
so effective. Now, I saw it, Elsa and I saw it in Hawaii, of all places.
Yeah.
And since we're being transparent, I have my issues with it, which is my own personal thing. But I'm sitting there watching. I'm in Hawaii. They're here for what, a couple of weeks and all that. But the complexity of now, this is really the complexity of the set and the staging and the lighting and all that. I go, this is enormous.
Yeah.
Just first of all, just to create it the first time. Then, oh, we're going to move it. We're going to move it to,
Yeah.
and then it has to be adapted to different theaters and different spaces, and
Yeah.
that's extraordinary. That's
It is
really extraordinary.
extraordinary.
Yeah.
It
My
is
my
extraordinary.
my issue here was, and it may be mostly here. I don't know. It doesn't matter. Was the
Yeah.
sound system? The sound system.
Oh, okay. How come?
Very difficult to understand them.
Uh, and
No,
especially
no, no.
that kind of play, you
If
need
you
to
can't
hear.
understand the words,
Yes.
which are not this is not a typical play because it
No.
goes so rapidly and there's
Yeah.
so many references. And it's interesting because I wear hearing aids,
Yeah.
and also for the past few years, many years, if I go to a play, I always get the headset. I said,
Yeah.
because I know it's mic'd. I know it can be mic'd, and it'll send it straight to me. So I had my hearing aids, which helped a little bit, and I had the headset too, which helped a little bit. But it was still frustrating because I'm watching this spectacle, and it's almost like it was in another language.
Well, we saw it at Sagerstrom, which is a great theater to see things in.
And
But we were sitting
which theater?
Sagerstrom over in Costa Mesa.
Oh, okay.
They do a lot of big productions there. And we were actually sitting on the side where they had the sign language, and then they actually had the dialogue on a little monitor as it went by. And,
Oh,
some of
wow.
yeah, it was really cool. But I thought about it, I go, how do you watch these guys doing sign language and then watch the action on stage? These guys that were doing the sign language were almost as entertaining as the guys on stage.
Wow.
The people that were doing the sign language were getting into it. They were acting it out, and they were just standing there, and they were dressed normally like regular people, but they were so animated, and it was so much fun to watch how they interpreted what was happening on stage. It was
Wow.
super, super cool.
That's cool. Now
Yeah.
that's a whole different performance all by itself.
Yeah. Because there were only three of them, and each of them would take on multiple characters. So,
Hmm.
one guy would be Hamilton, and then next thing you know, he'd be Thomas Jefferson, and then one
Yeah.
of them would be, Angelica. And it was really fun to watch. It was, and, I would imagine that that's just as exhausting as being on stage.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I would think
So,
so. Yeah.
but it was super cool. But yeah, I thought about you when we were watching that, and I thought, Mark always talks about the power of staging, and I go,
Hmm.
this is a perfect example where the staging and the storytelling go hand in hand.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So we'll see. I mean, as we talked about that, the as they call it, the screenplay industrial complex in IndieWire is coming to a close. And you got people like Zach with Storytelling 360 trying to take it into the new era.
Hmm.
You're taking it to a whole different level, because you're using the way things used to work, and then you're using new technology and you're combining the both to create a
Hmm.
community, which I think is amazing. So it's going to be interesting to see where things are in the next year, 2 years, 5 years. And I think more than anything, Hollywood needs to get their shit together because California should be offering a lot more tax credits to
Yep.
keep production here. The United States should be offering federal tax credits to film companies and TV companies to keep productions here. You're always going to have international productions. I mean, you can't shoot Lord of the Rings in Fargo. You know, you're going to have international productions and work hand in
Yeah.
hand.
Yeah.
But I think you're going to have to see both communities, the business and the creative communities, get together if they're going to continue to see Hollywood grow.
Yeah. And I think on a slightly different angle, we have to get the cost, I'll put it that way, of making a feature film down.
Yeah.
Down. When something like Killers of the Flower Moon cost over $300 million.
Yeah.
And it's almost 3 hours long. I said, well, 3 hours, that's two movies. And it is, if you, I don't know if you saw it, but it is two movies. That was one of my issues with it. But my first thing was $300 million. Now, I'm working with a lot of directors. I'm working with three directors right now who are working towards feature films that are being financed. And the highest budget that I'm working with now is maybe high 20s, low 30 million.
Yeah.
That's the highest. One I'm working with is like 9 million. I just talked to someone else the other day, 1 million. I go, for $1 million, think about it. Just think about the amount of money that is, $1 million.
Yeah.
Could you make a movie? Absolutely, you can.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Now, this does link to my hybrid course for a second.
Yeah.
Because we were just talking about 3 cameras and all that. And just so anybody who's listening, they go, oh, it's a lot of cameras. The way it's done intentionally, it's done with cameras that you already have. We're using iPhones, iPads,
that's a good point. Yeah.
iPads, laptops. The only thing we discovered, it's best if all the quote cameras we're using are made by the same company. Let's use all Apple phones, Apple laptops, Apple iPad, because the look was better.
Yeah.
But we're doing it in such a way that if you're the host and it's you directing with your, what's it costing you? Nothing.
Right.
You don't, even the way we're doing the sound, even the way the lighting, everything we're doing. So again, keeping the cost down. Now, what would if once a month we're doing a 90-minute visual event, which is the length of a film.
Yeah.
Once a month, and what's it costing? Not much of anything.
See, but that goes back to a great point of what people like you can teach, which is look at everything you're offering. And like you said, it's not costing a penny. So what's the excuse then for people not to do it?
Yeah.
It's like you're offering this tremendous tool for people to learn, and they can go out and they can make a film. If you can produce an entire worldwide class at no cost, why can't they go produce a 10-minute short of something they've written?
Yeah, exactly.
So that's exciting. I think it's going to be really great. I think it's going to be really interesting. I can't wait to sit in on some of the test runs and see how it works. And if you're up for it, we'll show clips as you're developing it before you're ready to put it out there, just so people can get an idea of what it is.
The fact that what you can create on your own and what people have created just with iPhones and just with the cheapest cameras, like the little cameras here that we have. These cameras are not that bad.
No,
they're good.
Yeah.
They'll work.
Yeah. All right, Mike. If people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
The best way to reach me, very best way, is through email. It's very simple. It's Mark W. Travis, all one word, MarkWTravis @gmail.com. The other great place is to go to my website, which is 4 letters, TIFI, Travis International Film Institute, TIFI.US. So it's tiffy.us. You go there, you can learn all about me, you can learn a lot about my beautiful wife, Elsha, and her work. And through that website, you can get in touch with us too. There are links to contact us. That's the best way.
Yeah, or you can leave a comment underneath the video, and we'll get back to you that way also.
That would be perfect. Yes.
You have anything else to add?
Um, no, but it's such a joy talking with you, Derek. I love this.
Always fun. Always
Yeah.
fun. Okay, for Mark Travis, I'm Derek Christopher. This is the Mark Travis and Derek Christopher podcast, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bless you.